ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. We are reading Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, second part, Sadhak Bhav, and we are in the 13th chapter, and we are traversing very, very delicate path, and we have to make ourselves as tranquil as possible, as undisturbed as possible. The mind, the bhava is actually the first bhava that is Shanta bhava. So that tranquility is absolutely necessary for any other bhava to play. And we have been, Saradananda Swamiji has been telling us that even if we doubt, in the last para, even if we doubt the historicity, if we can imagine that, feel that in your heart, you will find always the play between your Atman, your Lord, your Prabhu, and you as the Prakriti of that Prabhu. That play is every day, eternally going on. When the mind is not distracted by other things, and peacefully, if you try to feel that, you will always feel. Now, in this respect, I wish to suggest something to all my listeners. Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. There you can find things only date-wise. So please note down, those who are interested, all should, I feel, 24th August 1882. 24th August 1882. In the English books, subtitles are not there. But those who follow Bengali or other language books, there is a para-heading, Guru Shishya Samvad Guhya Katha. Please read that. And there it is explained that when we love God, our personality changes. And there is a love body, as Sri Ramakrishna describes it. That is the love personality. And in that love personality, with its love eyes, we see Him. With the love ears, we hear Him. With the love, male and female organs, we enjoy our own Atman. That is what is described there. So, now, if one can feel like this, if one is pure enough to feel like this, and the reason they are given is love God, love God, love God. So if that love has transformed us like that, then we can easily feel this Vrindavan Leela, not otherwise. So we go to para 19. He who has not learned, yesterday's para told us that if we can feel like that, you will understand. No, if he who has not learned how to be independent of external events, so first is this thing. Mind should be withdrawn from all external events. So it is not easy in one way. It lies very, very deep. And we have to reach that depth. And so I'm not dissuading anybody, but we have to feel that it is quite a difficult one. And that is why it is the highest. And so all spiritual progress requires this. Withdraw. The mind should be free from any external happening, external events. And how to study with a pure heart the history of the devotional moods by thorough acceptance of the ideal world as real. That is main thing. The ideal world means world made of ideas. Bhava Vishwa, world made of subtler experiences. That is the ideal world. Ideal world means world made of ideas or world made of bhavas, world made of subtler relations with God. That is the world. And that world should be accepted as real. This real world, so-called real world, should be removed from the mind, and we have to accept that world of bhavas as real. Beautifully conditioned is still. If one has not learned to do this, will never be able to enjoy the beauty and sweetness of his play at Vrindavan. Beauty gives ananda, same thing is described as sweetness. So that we shall feel only if our mind withdraws from the outside world, does not feel existence, and feel the Bhava Vishwa as real out of love for God, then we can feel this play. While Sri Ramakrishna is giving an example, while Sri Ramakrishna was describing that play of the divine with great enthusiasm to the English educated young man, so not that it is only for the old believers. Sri Ramakrishna is describing it to the English educated young men who were with him. Not all who were with him. He found that they did not relish it. So the mind does not like that at all. It abhors sometimes to listen to these things. We feel it is bad, it is immoral, and 100 things come in our mind because the external world is real to us. Because the Bhava Vishwa is not become real to us. So we feel like that. And he said, why don't you mark and grasp the attraction? So this is again going to the subtle field. Don't think of the external. Attraction of Srimati's heart. Srimati is Radha. Srimati's heart to Krishna in that divine play. When one has that kind of attraction to God, one realizes him. Just see, he is telling in the external world how mad the gopis were for Krishna, renouncing their all. Husbands, children, family, and propriety of conduct, honor and dishonor, shame and aversion, fear of public opinion and of society, and so on. So this one has to understand for what they were doing this, not for anything external. They were holy and pure women. They would never give up their husbands for some other person impossible. But it is turning inwards towards God. And that God they see in Krishna. They see God in Krishna. In the Gopi Gita, when they are expressing their grief, they know, Nakhalu Gopika Nandano Bhavan, Akhila Dehin Nam Antaratmadri. Vikanasarthito Vishwaguptaye Sakha Uday Ivan Sattvatam Kule. In the extreme sorrow, the inner feeling comes out. And at that point, gopis are telling, we know that you are not the son of a gopi. You are not a human being. You are the innermost witness of all who live in the body. It is a different matter that Brahma requested you to protect this world. And so you came in a particular family. Oh, beloved. So, this is the bhava of the gopis. And so, they are not turning from one man to other man. They are not able to give up their husband with any parapurusha attraction. They are able to renounce everything. And see, not only husbands, children, family, and propriety of conduct. So they are going beyond the propriety of conduct. They are not falling down. Honor and dishonor. What will happen to them? Honor and dishonor. Shame and aversion. All given up. Fear of public opinion and of society and so on. When one can be so when the mind becomes free from the external events, one realizes the divine law. Please read that portion carefully with a pure, peaceful mind. 24th August 1882, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. If, continued he, one is not free from the least tinge of lust, one cannot understand the spiritual mood of Radha, the embodiment of Mahabhava. Mahabhava is the combination of all bhavas. As soon as they saw Krishna, the embodiment of existence, knowledge, bliss, the gopis felt a joy in their hearts, tens of millions of times greater than sexual pleasure, only by looking at Sri Krishna. So the extreme joy in human life is produced in the sexual pleasure, but tens of thousands of times more intense. Imagine, by looking at Sri Krishna. They then lost their body consciousness. So the effect is losing the body consciousness, which never happens in the outside sex. Could the idea of the sex enjoyment by the contemptible body cross their minds then? Divine light came out of Sri Krishna's body and touched their bodies, producing now tens and thousands are given up, producing infinitely greater pleasure in every pore of their body. Sri Ramakrishna's description, sex is through one organ, but in every pore of their body, the Sri Krishna's light is giving them pleasure than that of sexual enjoyment. So, these things can be imagined only if the mind is free from the external world and takes the bhava vishwa to be real and feels the attraction which the gopis were feeling for Sri Krishna. So, this chapter is a beautiful stepping stone. And that is why in the beginning of the chapter I had told, unless you are a sadhana, you can never understand this. Unless you are entering deep inside you, you can never understand this. At one time, Swami Vivekananda is our representative. At one time, Swami Vivekananda raised an objection in regard to the historicity of the play of Radha and Krishna at Vrindavan and made an attempt to prove its honor, and authenticity. The master said in reply, very well, let us take for granted that there was never anyone called Radha. Argument. And that some loving sadhaka had an imaginary conception of Radha's personality. But while picturing that character, the sadhaka, you must admit, had to lose himself completely in Radha's mood. A sadhaka has written this. Sir, sadhaka had that bhav completely. Otherwise, he could not have written this. And thus he became Radha. So Radha is the ideal. Radha is not a person. Radha is that pure attraction for Krishna. And if a sadhaka has felt that he is Radha, it is therefore proved that the play at Vrindavan was thus enacted in the outer world also. If you feel inside, you will find that it is daily going on. Outward also it has happened because some sadhaka has imagined himself to be Radha, and then that mood, and so it is externally also. This is for argument's sake. Later on, when Swami Vivekananda believed, Sri Ramakrishna showed him Radha. The concept today is that even today, in the Nidhuvan at Vrindavan, every night, in the temples of Krishna also, every night, this Rasa Krida is going on. Indeed, though innumerable objections regarding the divine Lord's play at love of Vrindavan may be raised, you can raise objections. The Madhur Bhava was discovered by the Vaishnava teachers led by Chaitanya. Before that, it was not known. And others. Others mean Vaishnava teachers led by Chaitanya and other teachers. And manifested in their pure life. Their lives were very pure. In their pure lives, this Madhur Bhava was manifested. Will remain eternally true. You may object, but the bhav will remain eternally true. At all times, the aspirant fit for it. Those aspirants who are fit for it will attain the hallowed vision of the Divine Lord, feel blessed by looking on Him as husband and Himself as wife, and with the final development of that mood, be also established in the pure non-dual Brahman itself. That is the culmination. Saradananda never forgets to bring that culmination through love. Paraspara Bheda Vyavartan. The difference between the lover and beloved is lost, and the Advaita is achieved when that love becomes full. The reason why Chaitanya induced man, the sterner sex, to practice the Madhurabha. Now that is the point. That women may feel it natural, may, if they are pure like gopis. But men are supposed to be a dominating personality, which he called the sterner sex. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that bhav to men, his disciples, and to all of us. Why? That psychological connection is being shown by Saradananda Swamiji now. Although for women it is easy and natural to attribute husbandship to the Divine Lord and undergo the discipline accordingly, it appears to be unnatural for those who have male bodies. It appears unnatural. The question therefore naturally arises in one's mind, why Chaitanya introduced such an unbecoming discipline in the world? It has to be said in reply that all the actions of the incarnations of an age are done for the good of humanity. So start from this point, Shraddha. He is an incarnation, he is not doing something badly, he is not doing something without understanding human nature. With this faith, you have to understand. It has to be said in reply that all the actions of the incarnations of an age incarnation of an age. That means for that particular time period are done for the good of humanity. That path of sadhana was introduced by Chaitanya for the same purpose. He made the aspirants advance on the path of the Madhur Bhava, keeping in mind the spiritual ideal which the then aspirants were for a long time eager to realize. The aspirants were eager to realize, Chaitanya has shown them the way. It cannot be a fact that the eternally perfect Chaitanya and the incarnation of God engaged himself in practicing that mood for his own good and established it as a perfect ideal in society. It is not a fact that he did it for himself. And we have seen Chaitanya's incarnation through Thakur's eyes in the Guru Bhav, Purvardha and Divya Bhav. Sri Ramakrishna said, just as the external teeth of elephants are the tusks of the elephants are for attacking their enemies, and the internal ones for masticating food and maintaining their bodies, so two kinds of moods were manifested in Sri Chaitanya, the one inward and the other outward. That means in the outward mood, he does not seem to have preached Advaita. For that, this Thakur's explanation. He did good to humanity with the help of the outward mood of Madhur Bhav. That means when one practices Madhur Bhav, they will automatically reach it. They are not able to understand it today, so Madhur Bhav. And being himself established in Brahman itself as the ultimate development of the love for God, enjoyed personally the immense bliss in the inward mood of non-duality. That is Chaitanya. Sri Ramakrishna has beautifully described the spiritual condition of the country of that time, how Chaitanya improved it. So he has introduced one topic, incarnation of the age. So at that age, what was the condition? And for that age, how he has preached this. And how much of it we can take as seen in Sri Ramakrishna. Antiquarians mean those who study the past history. Antiquarians say that there arose in this country the teachers of the Vajrayana at the end of the Buddhistic age. Vajrayana at the end of the Buddhistic age. They preach that having attempted to realize nirvana, the final beatitude, and having almost been freed from the clutches of desires, the human mind went forward to merge in the great void with the help of meditation. They think ultimate reality is a void and human mind went to realize it. But then Niratma, the goddess of non-existence, because they do not believe in Atman and yet in the subtle world they feel a reality, so they call it non-Atman, Devi. Non-Atman Devi. That is what the Buddhists tell. The reality of the subtler world appeared before it, and instead of allowing it to do so going forward, kept it united with her own body. She is a Devi, she kept them united with her own body. Thus, though the gross body in which the aspirant enjoyed worldly objects did not then exist, she made him daily enjoy the aggregate of the essences of sensuous pleasure, inasmuch as he was even then possessed of a subtle body. This is Vajrayana. Therefore, it was no wonder that the doctrine preached by them of the attainment of the ultimate subtle enjoyment of the ideal world by the renunciation of the enjoyment of the gross object should have become distorted in later ages. So the subtle, unless it reaches the ultimate, does not remain subtle. Subtler, subtlest. If it does not proceed in this way, then the subtle comes back as gross. That becomes distorted in later ages. That the attainment of the constant enjoyment of the gross object should have been made the goal of religion. So, mind comes back to the gross. And that it should have increased adultery in the country. That means sex between any man and any woman. At the time of the advent of Chaitanya, the uneducated people of the country adopted that distorted Buddhist doctrine and were divided into various secret sects. They cannot do it openly, so that secret sects. The pure Vamachara spoken of in the Tantras, in Vamachara spoken of in the Tantra. That is pure, if you follow according to the Tantra. Became distorted even among most of the higher classes. And the quest of miraculous powers and enjoyment of sensuous pleasures by the motivated worship of and meditation on the Universal Mother came into vogue. So that is how the degeneration takes place. Buddhists found void. They did not proceed. Niratma Devi attacked them. From the settlers, they came back to grass. Tantra had a pure Vamacha, but it also adopted those things and made secret societies. And enjoyment of sensuous pleasures and obtaining miraculous powers. That became Tantra even today. And desirous of having unlimited bliss in the spiritual world with the help of devotional moods, the true aspirants of that age. So true aspirant, they want infinite bliss with the Lord. They do not want this subtle only. Settlers they want to go. With the help of the devotional moods, the true aspirants of that age were not able to find a way because no path was before them. The Buddhist distortion and the tantric distortion was in front of them. Chaitanya at first placed before those aspirants the ideals of extraordinary renunciation. So Chaitanya's religion, as all true religions should starts from vairagya and tyaga, not from enjoyment, not to gain miraculous powers. So he taught the ideals of first place before those aspirants, those who want God. The ideals of extraordinary renunciation and detachment by practicing them in his own life. You know an incident. When he wanted to take sannyas, his guru said, I want to test you. Put your tongue out. And on that he put some powdered sugar. And with the wind came, it blew away. Even saliva or sugar touching it did not come. That was his personality. That was his life. And through this life, he has taught people to follow that path. By practicing them in his own life. And afterwards pointed out that if one becomes pure and holy and looked upon oneself as a woman and upon God as one's husband, again I am referring to that portion. One can truly realize the unlimited divine bliss in the subtle ideal world. Subtlest and subtlest ideal world, Bhava Vishwa, that he can have that infinite bliss if he has renounced the external world and put himself in the devotional mood. Moreover, he preached the glory of God's names to the people in general. So this was not for everybody. For people in general, take the name of God, glory of God's name to people in general and induce them to repeat continually his names and sing aloud his praise. So in this way, their love will be developed. Many Buddhistic sects that had not got corrupted and fallen from the ideal were thus placed by his grace on the true spiritual path again. So in the Buddhist faith, Some paths were there, people were treading, but they were not finding the goal. Chaitanya's method told them that this will lead you to the goal. Though the groups of the followers of the distorted Vamachara at first opposed him openly because they are not want that renunciation or that which he has played and singing the glory of the name of God. They felt the extraordinary attraction of the unique ideal of his life that they feel, became self-denying and tried to have the vision of the universal mother through motiveless worship. So they did not turn to Krishna and did not think of themselves as female, but their love for the mother as Buddhistic Niratma Devi and the Tantric mother through motiveless worship. Therefore, while recording the events of the extraordinary life of Chaitanya, some writers wrote that the Buddhists, the upholders of the doctrine of the void, also rejoiced at the time of his birth because a light comes to them. That is from the book Chaitanya Mangala. The main point of the Madhura Bhava after all this now is describing the main point of Madhura Bhava. Shri Krishna, the Supreme Self, the embodiment of existence, knowledge, bliss, every time he is repeating this. Krishna not as a person, Krishna is the Satchit Ananda reality. He is the only Purusha. Purusha, male principle. Purusha, Chetan principle. The male principle. And all the jivas and creatures, both gross and subtle, are parts of Prakriti. The embodiment of supreme love. From Prakriti, they are taking up only that supreme love. And therefore, his wife. Purusha Prakriti. Purusha consciousness, Prakriti embodiment of supreme love. That is how one has to look upon. So if jivas become pure and holy and wholeheartedly, so every time he repeats pure and holy and wholeheartedly worship him as their husband, they attain by his grace liberation and unlimited bliss, the goal of their life. This is the long and short of the Madhur Bhava preached by Chaitanya. All the other devotional moods are included in the one great mood, the Mahabhava, of which the chief Gopi Radha is the embodiment. Each of the other gopis is an embodiment of one, two, or more moods comprised in the great mood. The aspirant is thus enabled to master the moods comprised within the Mahabhava by engaging himself in sadhana in imitation of the gopis of pleasure. So one or two are moods. And at last becomes blessed through a flash of the great bliss arising from the great mood. So through one or two moods he enters the Mahabhava and then realizes. The ultimate aim of an aspirant in the path is to become happy in all respects at the happiness of Krishna. That Sukha Sukhitam is the main in this Prema Sadhana. By giving up all desires for his or her own happiness once for all, through the contemplation of the mood of Radha, the embodiment of the Mahabhava. Now this Mahabhava, in the footnote, he has described from the Bhakti Granthavali of Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti. Let us go through that. The state in which one fears lest any harm should befall Krishna. Parts of Mahabhava, aspects of Mahabhava. Even when he is happy, and hence cannot remain patient for even a moment, the sadhak. He always is careful. Krishna is happy, but he should not come to any grief. Is the Radha's rude stage of the Mahabhava. Rude. That means the stage in which the Sattvika Vikaras have reached almost the highest point. Sattvika vikaras in the body. What is Sattvika vikaras? Choking of the voice, tears flowing in the eyes, kampa in the body, hair standing on end. These are the symptoms of Sattvika vikaras. Have reached almost the highest point. The Adhiruda stage of the Mahabhava is the highest point of the Ruda stage. It is that stage of bliss and pain, arising respectively from the union with and separation from Krishna. Because that is the nature of the mind. It feels separated and it feels pain, of which all the happiness existing in crores of universes, and also the pain produced by the biting of all the snakes and stinging of all the scorpions, are just a drop in the ocean. That intensity of Madhur Bhava. So to say, the last mentioned state of the Mahabhava has two characteristics. Firstly, Modana, that is gladness to be found in the friends of Radha only. Secondly, Madana, inebriation, which is the completest of efflorescence of all the sattvika emotions and bodily changes to be found only in Radha. So, Modana is found in Sakhis of Radha, Madana is found in Radha. Ultimate. The Madhura Bhava is the aggregate of all other moods plus something. It is not just total of this bhava plus this bhava plus this bhava. Some intensity and so many things are special in Madhur Bhava. The Vaishnava teachers have described the Madhur Bhava as the aggregate of the essences of the other four moods and something more. For the loving woman serves her lover like a slave, gives good counsel under all circumstances like a friend, feeling happy at his happiness and miserable at his affliction, and engages herself like a mother in nourishing his body and mind, and thinking of his welfare in all respects, thus wholly effacing her own personality. So as seen the Shanta Dasya Sakya Vatsalya are there. She occupies herself in entertaining her lover's mind and in bringing all kinds of comforts to him and thus keeping him flooded with extraordinary peace and bliss. So thinking of the peace and bliss and joy of the beloved. The woman who forgets herself under the influence of love and keeps a perfect eye on the welfare and the happiness of her lover is called in the devotional books the Samartha, the excellent. And her love is the best. There is no selfishness there. All other kinds of love tarnished with a tinge of selfishness have been assigned to two other classes, namely Samanjasa, the balanced, and Sadharani, the common. The common is expecting happiness for oneself only, and Samanjasa is give and take. You make me happy, I will make you happy. But the Samartha is you be happy. The woman of the former class minds her own happiness to the same extent as her lovers, and she of the latter class regards her lover as dear for the sake of her own happiness only. We find this in the common lovers also. How Chaitanya did good to humanity with the help of the Madhura Bhava. Be that as it may, Chaitanya preached the glory of the names of God and taught the aspirant to guide their lives according to the ideal of austere renunciation and place themselves in respect of love in the position of the beloved of Krishna, and thus tried to stem the tide of adultery prevalent in the society at that time. His mode of devotion and instruction to the aspirants did endless good to humanity. It showed the right path to those who went astray, brought into the bounds of a new society those who were excommunicated and who were living outside the pale of caste, Chandala and all that, embracing them all within a new caste called the devotees of God. You ask a Vaishnava, what is your caste? He will say Vaishnava. And held the high and pure ideal of renunciation and detachment before all the communities. However, that is not all. He proved beyond doubt that all the mental and physical changes called the eight sattvic vikaras. What are the eight sattvic vikaras? Footnote tells us the sattvic changes are those that shake the body and the mind. They are eight in number, namely motionlessness, perspiration, horripilation, indistinctness of utterance, tremor, paleness, paleness of the body, tears, and loss of consciousness. They are arranged in 5 grades according to as they give greater and greater enjoyments, taking their nomenclature from the blazing of fire, that is, smoking, smoldering, flaming, glowing, and incandescing. These 5 grades and these 8 bhavas. How a Vedantin accepts the sadhana of the Madhur Bhava as conducive to an aspirant's well-being. So Chaitanya preached like this. We are Vedantis, how we look at it. Although in the eyes of modern youth, the Madhur Bhava appears to be unnatural and unbecoming for those who have male bodies, it does not take long for a Vedantin to ascertain its proper value if the Vedantin is broad enough. He knows that as the result of a very long habit, all thoughts are converted into sanskaras in the human mind, and that it is owing to these impressions that man perceives a diverse universe, which really is the one non-dual Brahman. If he can, by the grace of God, really look upon the universe this very moment as non-existent, it will immediately disappear into the void before his senses. If you can think the universe does not exist, it will disappear in the strong mind. The universe exists for a man only because he thinks it exists. That is Vedanta. Why the universe exists? Because I think it exists. I am a man only because I look up myself as one, and another is a woman because she regards herself as a woman. Again, it is a matter of daily experience. So, world and myself are as a thing. Again, it is a matter of daily experience that when one mood becomes predominant in the human mind, it veils and gradually destroys all the other contrary ones if the mood becomes stronger. Therefore, an aspirant's effort to veil and gradually destroy all the other moods of his mind by virtue of the prevalence of the Madhur Bhava assumed by him towards God is looked upon by the Vedantin as similar to the effort of removing the thorn in one's foot with another. The male impressions are removed by feeling female. The consciousness of I am possessed of a body, which is the basis of all other impressions of the human mind, and the firm belief I am a man or a woman on account of one's contact with that body are two sanskaras that are most powerful. Body and with the association of the body, man and woman. When the male aspirant is able to forget his male nature by attributing the nature of the husband to the divine Lord and of the wife to himself, he, it is endless to say, can very easily throw off as well the mood I am his wife. So that is another thought. When the male will go, then the female also will go and will merge in God and reach the state beyond all moods. Therefore, a Vedantin finds it quite reasonable that an aspirant, when perfect in the discipline of the Madhur Bhava, should arrive very near the plane transcending all mood. Because he has lost this sanskara, that he can lose that also, is very near. The ultimate aim of practicing the Madhur Bhava is to attain the loving mood of Radha. So, because some people think that man can reach only some Gopis Bhav, so Saradananda Swamiji is bringing this point that Madhur Bhav is in Radha and we have to try to get that Bhav. Everything is in between on the way, not the goal. It is the aim of the aspirant, it may be asked. Is the aim of the aspirant, it may be asked, the realization of the devotional mood of Radha? Although the Vaishnava teachers, it may be said in reply, deny it to begin with and say that the mood of only a friend of Radha is attainable and that her own is not. It is inferred that the latter is the ultimate aim of the aspirant. So the Vaishnava teachers in general have not taught that. But by inference we will find that is the real meaning. Saradananda Swamiji's contribution to the development of Madhur Bhav, taught half-heartedly by the teachers of Vrindavan. For the difference between the mood of Radha and that of her friends is one of degree and not of kind. Like Radha, her friends also worship Krishna, the embodiment of existence, knowledge, bliss, as their husband, and try to bring about the union between Radha and Krishna in order to make the latter happy, inasmuch as he, they saw, felt most happy when united with her. So Tat Sukha Sukhitam is there. And they find Krishna and Radha, if they are united, then they get happiness. So they are trying for that. That is why they are Sakhis. No jealousy comes in between. Again we see that although Rupa, Sanatan, Jiva and other early Vaishnava teachers, Goswamis, spent their lives at Vrindavan in the service of different images of Krishna, they did not try to install an image of Radha by the side of Krishna. It is inferred from this fact that they did not do so only because they considered themselves to be in the position of Radha. Otherwise, why not Krishna and Radha worship? They themselves are Radha and loving Krishna. Those who want to study in detail the Madhur Bhava spoken of in the Vaishnava books should go through. Those who want to learn the writings of the early Vaishnava teachers, later distortions might have come. Early Vaishnava teachers like Rupa, Sanatan and Jiva Goswami, and also the poems of the Vaishnava poets like Vidyapati and Chandidas on Purvaranga, the dawning of the divine love, Dana, offering or dedication, Mana, the affected rejection of the beloved's endearment due to excess of emotion, Abhiman, the wounded feeling of love, and Mathura. Mathura means Krishna went to Mathura, pangs of separation. We have discussed the essentials of the Madhur Bhava here because it will make it easy to understand what wonderful zenith of excellence the master reached in the practice of that mood. Understood? So those who want the details should go to these books. Otherwise, if we read Sri Ramakrishna, it is enough. We enter the next chapter. Chapter 14, the master sadhana of the Madhur Bhava. So he has given the full detailed background. And Sri Ramakrishna, why he entered that, also has been shown. The natural inclination of the master's mind since childhood was to merge in spiritual mood. So mind it discusses at every point because that is what we can follow. The master was accustomed to remaining absorbed in any mood whensoever it arose in his pure and one-pointed mind. That mood fully occupied his mind for the time being and wiped off all other moods and converted his body into a perfect instrument suitable for his manifestation. When we study his life, we get acquainted with this nature of his mind since his childhood. We observed this nature of his almost daily when we were visiting Dakshineshwar. While he was merging in any particular spiritual mood as the result of his listening to devotional music or for some other reason, he, we found, felt in his mind extreme pain if anyone sang or talked of any other mood. So exclusively his mind will become. He experienced that pain because it is needless to say, the course of the modifications of his mind directed towards one point was suddenly checked. Patanjali, the great thinker, has called that state of the mind Savikalpa Samadhi, in which there is only one particular current of modifications around one object. The same has been described as Bhava Samadhi in devotional scripture. He has beautifully equated the two. This shows that the master's mind was accustomed to merging in that kind of ecstasy from his childhood. So we have to learn to absorb in one mood. What changes were brought in his mind during his sadhana? That is the basis. Now, sadhana brings changes. The above mentioned characteristics of his mind took an extraordinary new turn from the time he commenced his spiritual practices. So, natural mood, then sadhana, they took extraordinary changes. For whereas before his mind was found to remain in one mood only for a short time, and then to change into another. Now, once inducted into one mood, it always dwelt in it till it experienced its ultimate limit, getting at last a glimpse of the non-dual consciousness beyond. So, through every mood he reached that, then practice some other mood. As examples of this fact, it may be said that until he reached the furthest limit of the dasya mood, he did not try to practice the apatya, looking upon God as a mother again. He did not engage himself in the practice of Vatsalya and the Madhurva before he had the final experience of the apatya as taught by the Tantra. Instances of this can be easily multiplied if we study the events of the time of his sadhana. So the main point here is teaching us, don't take one mood and another mood and like that. Be absorbed in one mood till you reach the goal. The Madhur Bhava was not in the master's liking before the time of his sadhana of that mood, because he was practicing some other mood. When the Brahmani came, the master's mind was filled with the contemplation of the motherhood of God. When the Brahmani came, the master's mind was filled with the contemplation of the motherhood of God. At that time, he saw the actual manifestation of the Divine Mother in all creatures, sentient and insentient, in the universe, especially in all female forms. Especially all beings, mother, especially female forms, mother more manifested. Therefore, we clearly understand the reason why he addressed the Brahmani as mother as soon as he saw her, and fully believed himself to be her son, sat at times on her lap, and took food out of her hand, this completely being absorbed in the apatya bhava. Inspired by the devotional mood of the gopis of Praja, the Brahmani, because she had practiced that also, the Brahmani happened at times to sing songs conveying the idea of the conjugal relationship with God. When the master said, we are told by Hridaya that he did not like that mood and requested her to stop them and sing instead songs expressive of the motherhood of God. The Brahmani rightly understood the master's mood and started immediately singing songs indicative of the mood of the female attendant of the mother. So she changed to Dasiva. That will appeal. Or she introduced songs full of the outburst of affection of Yashoda for her Gopala. Vaishnava, Yashoda and Krishna. These are, of course, events that occurred long before he became engaged in the discipline of the Madhurva. He is telling his one-pointed nature. So it is evident that his was a transparent sincerity, absolutely unalloyed, As he himself used to say, there is no swindling in the abode of my mind, no mixture, no appearance of one thing inside and one outside. Anyway, we have seen how the master's mind changed and how he came forward to practice the spiritual mood of the maternal affection for God. So, Vatsaleva we have already seen through Jatadhari. Now, therefore, let us begin to describe the practices he undertook when he engaged himself in the discipline of the Madhura Bhava. We will take it tomorrow. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupaka Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.